The Frituals, written and performed by author Caitlin Costello. Chapter 14. Moraine. Moraine was not new to war. It was a constant theme in her rule. From the first war that her sister started, to the second war with man, and the rebellions that came just about every century. Moraine the rabble-rouser, Moraine the peace-bringer, to some, Moraine the breaker of vows. She regretted some of the decisions she had made over the centuries. But there was none she regretted more than letting Damien stay as the leader of her high guard. One could see that in the small gestures the queen made trapped in her cell. Her shoulders were slumped, and she didn't sit nearly as tall as she usually did. She had done her duty. She had found the Fritual of Cabanarral Lake. She had completed all of her jobs as queen to find them and name them, and she had even gone as far as to plan how to get them out of the city. They always had a plan for what to do if they were attacked from outside the city walls. But they never made a plan for what to do if they were attacked from inside. They had been taken by their own men. Men they now knew had been controlled by Damien to the dungeons. The dark cells that had stayed empty for nearly 150 years. Moraine believed in justice, but a justice that wasn't cruel. A system that let her people be held more accountable and let the dungeon cells remain empty. They had tied her hands behind her back, ripping the fabric from the sleeves of her ceremonial gown. They made her stand and watch as the citizens of her city who resisted, and the men and women who had not gone back to the human town, were escorted through the halls. Children were screaming, and mothers were crying. Husbands and older sons glared at her, and not for the first time, she felt like looks could kill. They put her in a cell next to Jamie and Tetra. Tetra was in the corner. Moraine couldn't tell if she was crying because she was scared or because she was angry. From what she knew of the girl, it was probably a mixture of the two. Jamie, who was one of the first to be brought down into these deeper cells, is sitting across from his daughter. His lip is split, and he has bruises blooming on his arms where he had fought against his captor. He occasionally gets up and paces the cell. Each time he rises, his movements are stiff, but slowly pacing the small area he is able to loosens his muscles. It is damp and cold below the castle. The windows are small slits high up on the wall that barely let in any light. It's a perfect cell. Moraine just never thought she would be the one behind its bars. "What happens now?" Tetra asks from the cell next door. She, while looking pale and mentally drained, doesn't look too badly hurt. Her knee is bruised, and she has a lot of scratches, but nothing created by her captor. "We lie low," her father replies. Tetra scoffs. "Well, I guess it's a good thing that we are in the dungeons then, huh? We can't get any lower." Straw rustles, and her father reaches over to her. "Look, the situation isn't great. We don't have a choice now, do we? We just need to what? We can't do anything down here, can we? We can't help Shauna. We can't do anything," she snaps, pulling away from him. You took Shauna. You could do some magic. Do something. Get us out of here," she says, rounding on the queen. "Tay, she's a queen. You can't speak to her like that. She doesn't look like much of a queen now, does she? She's just like us, locked up in a cell underground. Come on, Tay." "It's all right, Jamie." "She is right," Moraine says, sitting up and straightening her skirt slightly. She has a job, a purpose, calming her subject. She is right. We are in a bad situation right now, and there isn't much we can do. But to answer you, I can't do any magic right now. If I do, those who have imprisoned us will know." Moraine points to a shimmering black disc on the door of each cell. "You see that? It is a type of alarm." "Does that stop any tampering with the locks?" Jamie asks, moving to look at the lock. "I've heard that some have that ability. The only way to test it would be to try and play with it, Moraine says. I feel like that if any of us were to touch the locks, they would set off alarm as well. But again, the only way to know would be to test it. And you wouldn't suggest that, Tetra says, reading the look on the Queen's face. No, I wouldn't. So now we should do what then? Jamie asks, settling back down in his corner. Now we wait. Tetra pinches up her face in exasperation. And what exactly do you expect us to wait for? She asks. Huh? What the hell could sitting down here in a dungeon do to help us? Moraine pauses, planning out her answer before speaking. This is not a crowd of elves who have known her for years. It isn't people who would trust her words and accept any plans she had created. No, this is a scared human girl who looks at her and sees the person that took away her sister. She doesn't know Moraine and has every reason in the book to hate her right now. We wait for a sign. A moment when we have gathered enough information so we can fight. Tetra grabs a handful of straw and throws it at the bars. Yeah, and how are we going to fight? There are these things called bars that you already explained have magic on them. So what is your smart plan now? Moraine nods. You are right. We, as we have already said many times, are in a difficult situation. However, reacting will not help us. We must remain passive. If they trust us not to fight, we can learn things from the guards. And when we have gained enough knowledge, we can strike. Tetra grumbles something under her breath, but doesn't say anything else. Just picks at a handful of hay and begins tearing it apart. Fine. We can sit and wait, I guess. Chapter 15. Shauna. I wake up with the dawn, birds chirping merrily. As the last waves of sleep slip away, I let my thoughts drift on the melody of the birds' voices. First, they spin to the elf who lies a few feet away, and what he has said. Paulo has no one. He has every reason not to trust me, and, yet, without knowing me, has brought me into his sanctuary. We are young, inexperienced, and at least in my case, scared. We aren't trained to defend ourselves, but we have to protect ourselves from spellcasters who would stop at nothing to kill us. Dark bruises are beginning to bloom on my skin where the vines had gripped my arms and legs. So maybe Paulo isn't as vulnerable as me, but the dark ones are still growing stronger as they slowly isolate each of the Frituals. The night before had been a blur of action. I never even had a chance to think of the tools Moraine had given me. I reached into the depths of my bag, past the food that had been hastily packed, until I find a straight edge. I look over the book. It has been carefully bound in a dark midnight blue silk, and a gold filament lettering that shimmers dully as I turn the book over in my hands. I dive into my bag, this time in search of the worn-out dictionary. Laying the two books side by side, I open to the first page. It takes me around 10 minutes of work through the complicated lettering, flipping through the yellowed pages of the dictionary, looking for a simple solution to the complex words. If you are reading this, most likely you have been dubbed the waterbender of your generation. This is truly an honor. Thousands of others have been tested as they have come of age. That is why I ask you to please heed my warning and learn from those before you. Do not cast spells that are too powerful for you. If you are tired, or if you've never attempted them before, the outcome could be disastrous. Even when facing the Dark Ones. There is evil in this world, an evil that will stop at nothing to harm you. For every one you kill, 5 more are ready to take its place. They are highly skilled spellcasters, and will show no mercy. They have all the black forms of magic at their beck and call. Avoid them at all costs. Good luck. Who wrote this? I ask, no one in particular. closing the book to look at the old cover again. I don't see an author's name inscribed on the cover. Odd. It's a conglomeration of knowledge. No specific writer, Paulo says from where he lay. At least, that's how my book was. Oh, I say, flipping the pages. The book is nearly 400 pages of text that I will have to translate and work through before I begin to feel like I know what I am doing. I wish you could have been trained by someone who knew what they were doing, but I guess I can teach you some of what I know. I'm sure the exercises my teachers gave me can be adapted for water. Thank you, Paulo, I say. His word of help begins to lift off a layer of pressure I felt was crushing me to the floor. But can I ask another thing of you? I say, thinking of another flaw in my non-existent training. Do I want to know that question? He asks. I smile. Well, do you know how to fight? You know, like with a sword or a knife or something? Maybe in the meantime, before I can cast spells, I can fight like that. Seriously. You don't know how to fight. Sorry. It's just, you did pretty well with that dagger. I blush. Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't drop it. I was just hoping if I hacked at the vines enough that they would go away. Well, he says, laughing, as efficient as that method was yesterday, I don't think that will work in the future. Well, unless you used an axe or a morning star. But, that can get messy. My face explains clearly how little I want to do that. Okay, that's what I thought. In the meantime, would you rather learn how to use your short sword you brought, or this? He gets up, leaning against a wall where I hadn't noticed before, is a bow and quiver full of arrows. When I nod at the bow, he places an apple in a notch of the wall and walks back to me. Watch. He pulls an arrow from the quiver and slips it onto the string. With his arm fully extended, he draws back his other hand until the feathers of the arrow are just brushing his cheek. He looks down the shaft, aiming the shot, then releases. It is a beautiful miss. The arrow flies straight to the floor below the apple. All the power gone. Paulo laughs at his failure. Well, that's what I get for trying to show off. The steps to do it are simple, but there are a lot of factors. I would much prefer just to go at someone with a sword, but that's just me. He pulls another arrow out like he's going to try again, but I interrupt him. Can I try? He looks at me for a moment like he's going to scold a student for interrupting his lesson, but gives in. He hands me the bow, and I soon see he wasn't kidding. I spend the first 10 minutes trying to draw the bow back enough without the arrowhead falling away from the bow. Then, I find I can only pull the arrow halfway, and even then, the muscles in my arm are shaking. I release the arrow, feeling like it would be a good shot, and no. The arrow has some power, but it is not enough to fly straight. It is enough, however, to send it flipping end over end to land next to Paulo's. It was a nice try, he said, trying to sound encouraging, but he seems to hug the wall a little bit more. You'll have to get some more upper body strength if you want to get a full draw. I got that bow from our armory. I think it has a 60 or 70 pound draw. I pull out another arrow. I want to try a few more times. Are you sure? Your arms will... I'm sure, I say, and release an arrow 5 feet in front of me. I do about another 6 shots and am no closer to my target. I can see Paulo is trying not to laugh when I plop down next to the fire and start rubbing my tense muscles. Adding to the ones Paulo had put there yesterday, several spots on my wrist are producing bruises. Don't say anything. I will get this down, I say, when I wince as he hands me my breakfast. Whatever you say. He moves across the room and starts digging in one of his bags. Next time, try wearing this. He tosses a stiff leather cuff to me. I slip my hand through and tighten the strings. It would have been helpful to have this before letting the string lash out of my hand every time I released it. I think I continued to practice until lunch, using it as a way to build strength and to focus my fears. After a lunch of cheese and fruit, I sneak out of our little camp to a stream that runs nearby to collect some water. We have plenty of water, but I want something to do. I don't want to sit like a bump on a log in our little hideaway for days on end. I can feel myself starting to get antsy, but my arms are too sore from drawing back the bow to focus on that anymore. While I was away, I did some much-needed thinking. If there were others, why was I chosen? Am I related? Or is it simply that the goddess chose me? I have no answers for these questions. Well, I am told we do the tests because we need to see how you react to the water. The goddess has to be sure of her choices. Even she is not infallible, a voice says, seeming to brush the edge of my mind. I immediately stiffen. Who are you? I ask. My mind feels full, like my thoughts have been shoved to the side to make room for another's. You know who I am, the voice says, not answering the question. I panic slightly. What if this is a dark one? What if they got in my head? Where did I meet you? I focus on the dish in my hand. How smooth the canteen feels. How the water burbles around the opening, sending ripples as they wash away downstream. I brought you into the council room with Moraine. We met Damien there as well. We began to discuss what happened. You looked surprised by everything you saw. Damien snuck up on Moraine, and she half scolded him. I sigh in relief, straying unconsciously to where the gills had appeared on my skin. I didn't know I could speak to you like this. Will this hurt me? You were right to test me. No, you don't need to be afraid. All the power to do this is coming from me. You are safe. I wouldn't normally contact you like this. I wanted you to know what is happening at home. These are different circumstances. Hi everyone, I wanted to pop in and let you know, Until All the Stars Are Found, my newest book is now available for pre-order. This young adult science fiction novel will be published on March 6th, 2021. Click the link in the show notes to see where you can pick up the book today. Hi everybody, this is Caitlin Costello, the author and narrator of the Frituals. If you've enjoyed the podcast so far, please leave a rating or review wherever you enjoy your podcasts. It really helps the podcast to get in front of so many more people. If you can't possibly wait another second to know what happens next in the Frituals, fear not, for the full audiobook is now available, or you can get the print edition from CaitlinCostello.com signed. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. This has been a production of The Frituals, written and performed by Caitlin Costello. Text copyright 2018 to Caitlin Costello. Production copyright 2020 Caitlin Costello.